To foster a love of place, we must engage our bodies and our hearts as well as our minds in a specific place. Palo 2009. With these words in mind, on this cloudy but pleasant day, I set out on a nature walk in hopes for a better understanding of the importance of place as a pedological contact zone. The place I chose was Kevin Flint Reserve. I had chosen this place as it holds a lot of importance to me as my children and I frequent it during Melbourne's lockdowns. Our walks here were a form of respite during uncertain times. Unlike during lockdowns with my children in tow, this day was quiet and still, allowing for a deeper reflection and agency. On my walk, one of the first things about the place that drew me in was the large lake. It had overfilled with water due to the rains we have been having, so much so it covered sections of the walking path. Looking at the lake, I spotted a rule that had been put in place to measure the depth of water of the lake. As you can see, the lake was quite full. The lake was home to many wetland creatures. Predominantly seen on this day were ducks. I have fond memories of feeding them with my children and being on the lookout for ducklings in spring. But on this particular day, I spotted a duck with a bright patch of green feathers on the side, and it reminded me of the time my daughter asked me as to why some ducks had colourful green feathers on the side and others didn't. I remember not giving her an answer at the time and asking her what she might think the answer was. And after some time she came back to me with the conclusion that the green feathered ducks were male and had these feathers to attract females. I didn't notice at the time, but upon reflection now, my daughter was engaging in her own inquiry, observations and reflections, and was in a state of entanglement, human and more than human others, and had supported her in her agency in a place-based pedological contact zone. As I continued my walk, I came towards this bridge, which underneath it ran a small creek. It made me think of the times my children and I would scour the water to see what creatures we would find. My youngest would always tell me he saw fish, which I never thought to be true. However, earlier this year we witnessed two men pull out a snapper from the lake, and I stood corrected. Nevertheless, we would often spot tadpoles in the springtime. This would lead to inquiries of the life cycle of a frog, how they hatch from eggs into tadpoles. From tadpoles they grew legs and then dropped their tails and turned into frogs, which we would hear croaking in the background. What really stood out for me on this particular day was this floating feather. It made me think of my childhood, being at school, learning about objects that float and sink and how it could be possible to make sinking objects float. I believe this was one of my earliest memories of my love of science. My continued love for science had led me into completing a degree in chemistry, and I often find myself encouraging and supporting my children in scientific inquiries. It's something I can see myself implementing into my planning cycles when I become an early childhood teacher. Not before long, I found myself in my own scientific inquiry. My sensual awareness was starting a place for other learning. Palo 2009. I became fascinated by this tree. The short branches below had leaves that were wide, vibrant and green. The taller branches above had dull, thin leaves. Could this be a sapling, I wondered, or perhaps a different variety of eucalyptus tree? I was immersed in a place thought. The premise, the land, is alive and thinking, and the humans and non-humans derive agency through the extensions of these thoughts. Era ETAL 2017. As the nature walk was coming to an end, on the ground I spotted a yellow dandelion flower. I was immediately drawn to it. It was the first brightly coloured object I had seen all day. It made me feel happy and calm. I always found it interesting how colours can affect our emotions. Not far from the flower I spotted a dandelion seed head. Feeling like a child again, I picked it up and attempted to blow the seeds away. I was unsuccessful this time, but I have fond memories of my children and myself as a child picking these seed heads and watching the little fluffy seeds float into the sky. This concluded my walk. Reflecting back on my nature walk now, I believe I have a better understanding of place as a pedological contact zone. Place-based pedagogy can promote children's agency, enabling them to make choices and decisions that influence the events and their world. ECE6010 2018. Places are always in a state of entanglement of human and more than human others, Ham, page 16, which can lead to opportunities for meaningful and engaging learning experience such as those I experienced on my walk. Therefore, there is a need to foster a love of place or places at an early age so that our body, heart and mind will engage and shape our cultural and social identity.